Well, we're back with Aristo, and we have a title for this, and the title is Balance is Always Key, or Always the Key. We've worked with it both ways, and I'm just going to let Aristo go, and maybe I'll interrupt him from time to time if I have a question or a comment to interject, but Aristo, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ron. We were on today, and in our preliminary discussion, we were talking about your last video, which was about the truth. You were saying, is there the truth? What is the truth? I've had a tough time these last few days. My computer burned out. I had to get a new computer. It was a real pain in the butt, to set everything up. But these were, really stressful days for various reasons. Now, I'm saying this because I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I had my own faith in the situation, just keep moving. And everywhere I turned, a lot of people seem miserable. Here, there's a kind of crisis. You see people getting by, but a lot of people, there's a kind of atmosphere of misery. It's not like people are crying in the streets, but there's a lot of strain in the air. A lot of it has to do with what's on the media, both the local media and the international media. In fact, if I step back from the whole situation, even in my own case, or Ron's case, your case, and everybody else's, I would say, well, let me just pretend I'm an observer who steps in, and I see a whole bunch of coincidences of an atmosphere where everybody seems to be losing it in one way or another. And then some people aren't losing it, but they react like one person, not one person, many people react to what you say and say, oh, you have to look at things, the positive side. You have to see the good things in life. You have to, and then other people come out and say, what good things in life? Somebody else says, I've been fighting the good fight all my life and I'm tired of it. So I'm just going to do my own thing and just, do my own thing. And somebody else comes up and says, yeah, but if we don't bring them down, we can't do anything. Now, we've said pretty much similar things here. Other people have discussed pretty much similar things. So what do? Everybody, in other words, is overwhelmed. Everybody is saturated. And you come out and you would say, well, what is truth? And that's fine. I've done other videos with you and even on some blogs and mentioned, well, uncertainty is a fact of life. And the thing is, people who want you to stress and suffer and lose it and be better manipulated would play on that uncertainty to cause more stress. However, you don't need to fault the uncertainty. Uncertainty is always a fact of life, but it doesn't mean doom. It doesn't mean we don't have any control of anything. I personally believe that our attitude and frame of mind determines to a very great extent what happens to us in our lives. Now, you can give me examples of, well, this calamity and that calamity and the other calamity, and I can also give you examples of, well, here's somebody who had a negative frame of mind or messed up or lost it or was easily a pawn of circumstances, or somebody who was brainwashed, and then you have this other person who stood their ground, believed in themselves, was as informed as possible, and believed in the fact that their attitude matters, which is more likely to survive and thrive under these conditions. Most likely, in my honest opinion, is the person who believes in themselves, who believes in the power of their own abilities. And it doesn't mean that that power is absolute. We don't know how much that power is. We have been so disinformed, so brainwashed, so atrophied that our abilities are weakened. We don't know if we create our reality or not. We may not create our reality right now in terms of some divine snap your fingers, but we may influence events. There are some experiments based on random number generators, on cards, on psychic experiments, if you will, basically that a mind frame or or will may in fact influence the course of events. Then you say, well, why doesn't everybody just go to a casino and win? You got to understand another thing. Yeah, that's true. But a casino is a box, okay? It's a closed system that's highly controlled, where you have a multiplicity of conflicting interests. First, you have the conflicting interests of all the players who want to win. It's not just they want to beat, they all have a common goal of beating the house. They want to beat each other and the house. So then you have the house, which has all the resources. The house has the cameras, the house has intimidation, the house makes the rules, the house holds the money, the games are all, the players, the people who manipulate the cards or the roulette wheels and everything belong to the house. And basically, if you beat the house, you get your ass kicked if you beat it too much. So it's not an equivalent battle, but somebody is controlling the reality. Somebody is creating the reality. But if you have contradictory things, what happens? Well, you might say that the averaging out of will, if you have this vector in physics and this vector, and they're equal and opposite, they cancel each other out. You have zero. So if we are all manipulated to go against each other equally, we will cancel each other out. And then somebody else can waltz in and impose their will and create our reality for us. Or somebody wants to create a certain reality, they don't have to do it themselves. All they have to do is brainwash and program us to do it for them. So we may be creating our own reality, but this reality may not be something that comes from within us. It is not in accordance to our desires. It is our reality. We are responsible for it. However, it may be a reality due to programming and brainwashing.
Which I think it is.
I believe so too. Think about how much brainwashing there is in any given individual. Take a random individual, just somebody you know. Take yourself, look in the mirror and say, how much am I brainwashed? Imagine all of the assumptions you have, even the assumptions on assumptions. I've been looking into, there was this channeled material back in the 70s, early 80s, late 60s, known as the Seth material by this channeler named Jane Roberts. And you're familiar with it, other people are too. This is the key channeling material that basically, you might say, it didn't start the New Age. That whole stuff came in from much earlier, but it set the tone. And the reason is, while she was channeling, all these people came and she was describing, look, everybody's trying to tell me that I'm talking to spirits. I don't know if I'm talking to spirits. All I know is that there is this internal world that's a whole universe that is coming through and saying, well, I am an aspect of yourself, but I'm also an independent entity. I'm an aspect of being, and there is something that I wish to convey because you want to know about this, see? And so other people that are saying, yeah, but where's God fit in? Where the spirits fit in? Where the angels fit in? And she was basically saying, well, let's backtrack. Has any of this ever helped us? I mean, have we really ever figured anything out and resolved our problems with these religious terms? I mean, it doesn't mean we have to throw them out, but let's set them aside. So when we experience a phenomenon, she was saying, look, man, I'm honest about this phenomenon. I'm experiencing this. I spent, she said, 10 years testing to make sure it wasn't all in my head. So the fact is that she did not succumb to a program, a cultural program, but she knew she had her own biases.
As we all do.
As we all do. You see, to sustain, it's not a matter of let me eliminate the programming. That's a very tall order. It's something that, in my opinion, is very constructive, shall we say, so I don't go and say, well, you have to do this. But it's very constructive for us, in my opinion, that we proceed with any means that is healthy but can deprogram us. And if we are afraid of that, it is very healthy to confront those fears. Or what happens when this program is gone? We don't even call it a program. We call it comfort. It's an addiction a lot of times. But attacking the program the religion, whatever. I mean, that's like me looking at my computer and saying, all programs are bad. No computer, no Facebook, no nothing. I'm here in my room, and some people say, yeah, that's the way it should be. Yeah, but in the context of the way society is today, that isolates me. Even though the so-called system, like you convinced me, you said, you have Facebook, go on Facebook, let's, why are you afraid of it? Well, they're spying on me, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're data mining me. Well, so what? I mean, this is a reality of the way things are today. Just like 50 years ago, we had the Industrial Revolution and all of this. We don't have to throw it out. What behooves us to do is to seek balance. This is what I believe Jane Roberts was doing. She was essentially trying to sustain a relationship of balance with what she was channeling, what she was doing. Now, some of the material is very, very interesting, not interesting, but fascinating. And then I saw that the rest of the New Age is just a bunch of people repeating the same thing, but putting in programs that came from older stuff, theosophical stuff, Masonic stuff, stuff that you see, all these rumors that the CIA was into, the occult, weird Aleister Crowley stuff, that may have been genuine, whatever, at some point, but that, certain agencies took and said, okay, this is great to mix up people. This is great to confuse people. Let's take this guy named Anton LaVey, who was supposed to be working for the CIA, have him hype up this whole thing because people will buy into it because they're already programmed from Christianity to believe in the devil. And so what this guy did would just take legitimate figures, pentagrams. It's a geometrical figure. Now, how the hell can a geometrical figure be evil? A square is evil, a circle is good. I mean, people did that. A cross is like this, but if it's like this, then it's evil. Because it represents, look, man, whether you hang yourself upside down on a damn cross or right side up, you're still going to die. I mean, it is an instrument of torture. Instead of saying, okay, this cross is actually the last Hebrew letter, Tau. So you have Alpha, which is the first Hebrew letter as well as being a Greek letter, Aleph in Hebrew, and then Tau. So in Greek, it's Alpha and Omega. So Alpha is the bull, Aleph, Alpu. It is a Semitic word that means bull. The bull is the symbol of power, not just male power, because if you look at the symbol of a bull's head with horns going out, it also looks like a female reproductive system, a uterus with fallopian tubes coming out. They found this symbol in prehistoric caves, in Neolithic caves, and initiation areas, like shamanic initiation and stuff. This was an important passage, so it represented both female and male virility. So the first letter, essentially, is not just the male bull. It is the bull, the cow, the constellation of Taurus. The Pleiades are in the constellation of Taurus. All of these dynamics represent a sense of power, a mobilizing power, of fertile power. So you take this and you put it, the last letter, now the Hebrews went through all of this, blah, 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 history and everything. So they have an alphabet, and because they weren't allowed to depict divinity in imagery, all they had was the word. And their word started with hieroglyphs. So those were images. And so the hieroglyphs became abstract and became more abstract into letters. So essentially, instead of putting their gods in statues, their gods, not their gods quite, but their sense of spirituality was through their alphabet. Their sense of mystery was through the language, through the alphabet. The Bible is the word of God. Where else do you have somebody talk about they have holy scripts. Everybody has holy scripts. But prior to the Abrahamic religions, you never had, God actually wrote this, He told somebody to pen it down. Yes, you had inspired things, you had visionary things, you had people who were saints and sages and open to the divine, and they had an experience. But nowhere does the personal power of a personified divinity go and write something down, even if it's through another person. So essentially, the first letter and the last letter are significant because they close the whole circle. I am the Alpha, the Omega. The omega is the tau. It is the cross. So essentially, they took this thing that was the power of the, and alpha and omega essentially means completion. It means A to Z. It's a colloquial term too. It means A to Z. It means everything. So this whole thing turned into this torture device. The Word of God is a torture device. You take the Aleph, which is the sage, which is the bull, which is the bull god, which is Mitra, which is, the pagan Christ and the Mithraic religion in Roman times, the Persian religion. They had so many similarities. Many people will say that. It doesn't mean that Christianity is a pagan religion. It means that as Christianity became Romanized, pagan elements came into it. Let's just put it that way to speak conservatively. However, this symbol of vitality, of divine vitality, who is the so-called Christ, is placed on the last letter, nailed to the cross, in a torture, insanity as a sacrifice. So the Word of God has turned into the word of suffering, the word of sacrifice, the word of, I want to drink your blood, So God is a vampire, according to this. Now, this is not the religion, the original intent. This is a Romanized manipulation. So how do I sustain balance in this? Well, I can take a step back and say, well, I don't care what they tell me. Where is my inner sense of the word, of the divine, as I sense it? I don't know. Maybe I can't feel. My heart has been destroyed by this programming. My life is nothing but a mundane haze. So what do I do? Well, if I am even asking this question, that means there must be something inside of me that at least has an inkling of a possibility of an answer. If it is instinctive to ask a question, then that question is not randomly expressed. It means that that instinct comes from a recognition that the possibility of an answer is there. The answer we want may not be there, but perhaps the answer we need may be there. So asking questions may be a natural way that we humans implement to find meaning, to regain balance. Balance means equilibrium. Equilibrium means being in a position where no force dominates another force. Being in a position where everything is in equanimity, so then you can make decisions. Nothing is trying to grab you, and nothing is being hidden from you. Everything is revealed equally, the good and the bad. That doesn't mean you have to maintain an static equilibrium forever. But it means that your relationship with everything in your life does not knock you over into something that you're not. Being defeated is something that you're not. Being dead. It's like, well, you're alive now. Well, how do I know if I'm alive? How do I know if anything is real? That question doesn't matter. You're still operating. You're still moving. I mean, it doesn't matter if you think you're being deceived. The problem is you might say, well, if I'm not alive, then somebody's going to come and give me the revelation that I'm really dead. Well, you see, anybody can say that. Then you've lost your balance. That's an example of losing your balance. If you let that screw with you, you've lost your balance, because then it's more probable, since it happens more often, that somebody's messing with you. Well, why would they mess with me? Well, so you don't react when they take your rights away. So you're not able to do anything. So you think it's hopeless, and you say, well, God has to do something because I can't. And God's saying, listen, buddy, or son, you can. And I'm not going to do anything except keep prodding you until you realize what you can do, because that is enough. I know you have a problem with this, Ron.
You saw my grimace?
I saw your grimace. I know you have a problem with it because you believe you shouldn't have to do anything.
No, that's not what I believe.
I mean, the implications of asking God to resolve this as a separate being, because first of all, God isn't a separate being. That's a God. That is a spirit. That is what they would call a daemon, or even an angel, or even an extraterrestrial, or a parent. So that being is not your creator. Your creator will always come from within you. Because if your creator comes from without, then you are a creature like an animal with no freedom, except the freedom to express your instincts. So if you are an animal, then, yes, God can come in the form of nature and redeem you if that is, and for example, let's put it this way, the dinosaurs were overdoing it. They were killing machines, and the other half, the plant eaters, were basically eating machines. They were, reproducing and plump food. So you had the killers and the food. And the food were living beings, and they suffered by being eaten. There was no equilibrium in that ecosystem. It was simply, and there was no evolution except for a certain velociraptor that evolutionists say was going to become the next sentient being. Now imagine a reptile developing an advanced nervous system and cognitive abilities, but no compassion. So imagine that this reptile, then everything, God, whatever, said, okay, we don't want evolution to go in this way. Let's send a meteor to the planet and do away with this. And we'll start fresh. Why did that happen? Why didn't God create humans from the get-go, as the Bible says? Why is there even evolution going on? Why this struggle? These are questions basically that, if you go back into everything that's in your reality, you get to confront things and you are given hints as to how and why everything is. That essentially, from a perspective of time, and the Gnostics say that time is in bondage to the demiurge or whatever, because time creates a scenario where there's entropy, where you have to have effort, where things take duration, where energy is compromised, this and that and the other. Saturn, karma, this and that. The thing is, why don't things happen instantaneously? Well, here's my answer. Because after everything is said and done, it doesn't matter. Whether it all takes 1,000,000 years or 2 seconds, once it's all said and done, it's all said and done. So then you look back and you say, okay, how did I get here? What does it mean? How do I master this? How can I reproduce the causality and be a creator myself? Oh, sorry, there's no process. There's no past. It all happened instantaneously, so you can't. Well, why doesn't God just make me a creator? Because where's your experience? You have to earn your experience through trial and error to make your choice. Why trial and error? Because trial and error means yes and no. It means making choices. It means confronting resistance. It means meeting a barrier that you cannot cross. So you have to figure out what to do about it. This all occurs in time. When people say we've come to this planet to learn things, this is what I believe they're trying to say. Through time and evolution, and it's not calculated. What happens is that if a singular God wants to create something that has never been there, that is through time, and has never been there before, something completely different. You're a child and you want to be an adult, and there's nobody out there to tell you. God doesn't have a God. There's nothing. A being that's omnipotent and they're omniscient, where do they come from? Everything began at some point. What happened before God created anything? What was going on? I'm just hanging out, doing nothing. I'm just, for eternity. And then one fine day, let's just make something, because I feel like it. Well, what? There was no motive then, because if God is omniscient, perfect, and omnipotent, what changed to create that beginning? In the beginning, what beginning? And so it doesn't make sense. Well, it shouldn't make sense because this is God. Well, then we shouldn't be asking questions about anything. It needs to make sense to a certain degree. And that sense is that we are learning, but the fact is that so is God. Unless you come to the conclusion that God is also an evolving being, that there is a paradox of perfection, but also of evolution, then it doesn't make sense. There is no meaning. There is no nothing. We shouldn't even exist in that sense. And evolution means overcoming limitations. Evolution means you start with zero, with a rock that you cannot lift, and then moving and infusing yourself because you're creating something that even God couldn't conceive before. because you're a singularity. Where the hell does the idea of multiplicity even come from? Just a yearning for company, a yearning for love to find an opposition. So divine love in the beginning was just selfishness, because there's only one. That's what the definition of selfishness is. See how you go round and round with the mind and the concepts we already have, trying to make sense of these things. So it's understandable that we say it is a headache. Let's just go back to the simple stuff. God's this big guy with a beard, and it's not me or you, by the way, but he's the big guy with a beard. And he's obviously old because he's experienced, even though he's eternal and there's no time sense. And so he should know what he's doing. He's a guy. Maybe he's a woman too. Maybe he's a transsexual. Who knows? But he or she, is my parent. And so, if they don't have it covered, all I can do is cry like a baby until they come and stick the baby bottle in my mouth, and I'm content. But let's go back to our original topic. I have lost my balance in doing so, because then I'm lost to life, because then I do not implement the resources that allegedly this divine being has given me as a reflection in the image and likeness of it. So if I am in the image and likeness of the divine, then it's possible for the divine to scratch its own head and have conundrums and wonder. That scares us. But it doesn't mean that there is no outcome to it. All it means is that this divine dares to create limitations, because overcoming a limitation brings you to where you could not have been before when you were unlimited. We cannot see this because we were born in limitation. But if it's the other way around, imagine, you're changing your condition. You're creating an instability. You're losing your balance and then regaining it again. You see, if you're always balanced on the tip of a pin or whatever, if you move, you're going to lose your balance. So you never move. You never do anything. So eternal balance is not the solution. The solution is dynamic balance. A dynamic balance occurs when you lose your balance. You don't fall. You're like the person in a tightrope. You wobble a little bit. You get scared. You crap your pants. You wipe your butt. And you move on. You are essentially dancing, as you say. You are moving through, and you are not saying, okay, divine, reality, nature, universe, however you want to call it, leave me alone, I'm going to do it myself. There is no, everything is already connected. Our prayers are not so some divinity can hear us and come to our rescue. Our prayers is an affirmation of a connection that already exists. It's for our benefit. We don't have to pray. That's the thing. I mean, if God isn't coming to your rescue, whether you pray or not, it's your heart that basically opens the door. So it comes back again to the point that you have the resources. Can you create your reality? Well, somebody has figured out that you can't create your realities because they have gone to great lengths to stop you from doing it. They've gone to great lengths to stop me from doing it. They're going to great lengths. And if you were psychic, again, these are iffy things. I can't come out and say, well, I'm psychic, so, But if you're sensitive, if you're intuitive, a lot of people are. You can sense things. You can essentially feel the currents of events. You can feel the mood in the air. You can feel when, like for example, you're having a streak of bad luck. A whole period of bad luck. Everything goes wrong. And you can feel a certain texture in the atmosphere when that happens. And then all of a sudden things shift again. Why do they shift? Maybe it's you have had enough and you are reclaiming your courage and you're standing up in your heart, or you're just stop fighting it. And if you stop fighting it, you can relax, and then again you take a deep breath and things reset. Many things can happen. The only torment that is perpetual is torment that is intended perpetually, and there's an effort put into it. It takes work. We are paying our dues to be tormented. We are paying our taxes. We are paying our beliefs. We are bowing down to the altar of the matrix constantly so the matrix can screw us. It is not just a passive thing. It only appears that way. So where is the matrix screwing us? In everything we take for granted. But at the same time now, there is so much resentment in the world. I mean, for example, the United States goes to Iraq, blows up everybody. Now that's something. Somebody comes and destroys your family. Wouldn't you be pissed at them? You know, and let's say you have a tradition of folklore, of magic, of cursing.
5 minutes. 5 minutes, just so you know.
What would you do? You have all these little old ladies, all these little old ladies who can, you know, bless people traditionally, curse them. You have these Muslim Sufi people who also have the power of blessing and cursing, and you destroy their families. You torture their children. You rape their little boys and little girls, and then come back heroes. And what are they going to do? They're not going to be pissed off at the Rothschilds because they don't know who they even are. And who cares about them? I mean, they're just functionaries for somebody else. It could, in the end, some hero may come up out of all this that will save us. And that may be the one who's behind all of this, as the whole Antichrist story goes. So we are taught to hate each other. And then we are guilt-tripped for feeling resentment, as it is only a human thing to do. So we can't hate each other. There's a word that's now called microaggression. So if you go to a woman these days, they actually have come up I saw this on David Icke. He read something from an article. If you go, these people in South Carolina, Chapel Hill at the university, the philosophers or the dorm people, I don't know who, they're officially saying, if you compliment a woman on her shoes, it's microaggression. If you interrupt a woman when she's speaking, not a man, just a woman, it's microaggression. You're aggressive. You're aggressing against her, you know. But it's a microaggression. It's not a real one. They're coming up with these terms, and they're saying to the college student, if somebody uses the word wife or husband, what do you mean by that? You have to aggressively come to them and attack them and say, what do you mean by that? Please specify this derogatory, racist, sexist, blah, blah, blah term. So you are forced to not allow yourself to speak and voice your opinion unless you say it the correct way according to them, which puts you in a position of losing your balance. There are so many ways they can knock us off balance, but we do it for them. We knock ourselves off balance. And we think other people are doing it to us, but we are used to it. So I'm not, you know, time is short, so I cannot give a list of how to keep your balance. This whole thing and all these little examples have essentially been to just show how important it is to maintain balance and how far-reaching the idea of maintaining or losing balance is. Even to the point of, you know, what's going on with the whole divine zone, your religious beliefs, the war stuff, the behavioral manipulation, everything, the economy, everything. So if you're going to ask a question to seek the truth, ask about your balance. What is the truth of my balance? Where am I balanced? How am I balanced? What is the feeling of equilibrium? So I can make choices from a position that may still be brainwashed, but that at least I can navigate as a being who, knowing who's brainwashed, is still free to choose a way through. And I do believe that you will find a way through when you do this sooner or later, because you will at least be able to see where they're trying to knock you off balance. And those are very, very important points to see. They may be the keys to unlock the doors to solutions. That's all I have to say to you. I hope. Okay, and that's it. Thank you for hearing me, unless you have any questions or anything to add.
Aristo, there's always questions. Even when you make comments on my videos and stuff like that, you go to great detail. And I mean, sometimes I'm cheering and sometimes I'm saying, what the hell's he trying to say?
Yeah.
And so it's not always clear to me, because I'm wanting a world where there is no aggressor against the rest of the people, like a small aggressive group.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to eliminate in this world, or have eliminated, a cabal or anything like that. Anybody that would impose their will on somebody else is, to me, absolutely should not be allowed.
That's like asking for a world without germs. And if we eliminate the germs, we die, because we need the germs. What we need is to balance out the good bacteria with the bad bacteria. We don't even need to eliminate the bad bacteria. They just need to go to their proper place. And I believe we can create a kind of spiritual, natural ecosystem of souls within the material world that can do that. That's why I'm saying it's not a simple solution. It's not even an easy solution, of course. So, but I can understand your frustration, and that's why I try to be as diplomatic as possible. That's when I said, what's he trying to say? Well, he's just being maybe too diplomatic and losing the message in the translation, you know, because it isn't simple. And if you believe that all it takes is that, you can do what doctors did, and they disinfected things so much that people started, their immune systems were too much antibiotics. You killed all the good bacteria. People start dying. You know, psychopathy comes from somewhere. You can't lobotomize people because, you know, you don't like what these thoughts that they have. You know, it's to stop aggression. The sacrifice is too great. We lose our humanity. We don't want to ask God to come down and lobotomize us. And it's like, well, that's the thing. Creating a free being in this limited dynamic for multiplicity and the potentials of love to maximize will put us in this conundrum. Now we need to create ourselves out of it and meet the foe, because the foe is us in the end. These psychopaths are reflections of us. You can kill them all, more we're going to come up. That's all. But I do believe we can. And we are getting stronger because we're learning from our mistakes, even if these are the mistakes that say, okay, I've been fooled once, I've been fooled twice, I've been fooled 3 times. At least we can learn to be fooled less. And maybe we can teach the younger generation to do likewise. That's why, you know, the younger people listen to the older people, because they have more experience. But of course, the system is trying to knock that off key too.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of tangents we can get off on, and it's really, really easy. I mean, you push my buttons, and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Exactly. Yeah, I try to be gentle when I push buttons. And maybe we can dedicate one of these videos sometime to Q&A. You know, okay, you have questions from the previous videos, all of these issues that I keep bringing up and repeating. Maybe we can answer some questions.
Okay, well, we'll see what the future holds. I stopped the clock. We've gone over the 35 minutes.
Yeah.
I stopped the timer with 16 seconds to go. Anyway, thank you, Aristo, and maybe we won't wait as long for the next video, but it depends on how things are progressing in your life with computers and everything else.
I'm pretty much okay now. The computer, I have a computer. It's, you know, a regular desktop now, so I got a big screen and everything's cool.
All right.
All the bells and whistles, and you know, it's good. It's like you go through a crisis. I go through a crisis, and it's the most horrible thing in the world, but it's not the end of the world. These kinds of crises, a hassle, not as bad as, you know, going to the hospital or something like that, but, you know, your car, you know, something, or you're this or you're that. Near misses, but then it happens in such a way that a new beginning is possible. So even with your crisis, a new beginning was possible. Maybe under different terms, maybe things have been streamlined and tightened. Maybe you didn't have the luxury that you had, relatively speaking, before, but it allows you to focus more on what's necessary, you know. And even though that may seem like a compromise, well, I'd rather be a millionaire dealing with all of these things, you know. But still, look at life in a way that if you regain your balance, then where you are is much more navigable. Just make sure it's balance that you're regaining and not some escape into, you know, a comfort zone. That's all. We don't want to go in.
So thank you again. And